and Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko has ordered the creation of a new military command for the south of the country bordering Ukraine. Mr. Lukashenko gave the order at a meeting with his defense minister, Viktor Krenin, and other military officials, as seen in a video released by an official Belarusian Telegram channel. Belarus plans to deploy special operation troops in 3 areas near its southern borders with Ukraine, as Mr. Lukashenko talked up the role of Russian-made missiles in boosting the country's defenses. Let's talk now to Team Rosette, who is an associate professor of intelligence studies, and he's the head of the Ukraine program at the Norwegian Defense College in Oslo. Thank you for your time. Welcome to the program. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Let's look at the situation first on the ground before we come to what's happening relating to your country. First of all, what do you make of the back and forth right now? As everybody seems to now accept, the war on the ground is basically a stalemate. It has now got to the stage where it is grinding back and forth with no obvious advantage to either side.
Yes, you could say it's a stalemate, but it's still locally dynamic. And even though Russia lost the territory north of Kyiv and around Kharkiv, the situation in Donbas is currently on the Russian advantage, where you see now almost total capture of Luhansk and continuous attack on the front line in Donetsk as well. So we are now seeing a Russian momentum for the time being, and I expect them to capture more territory in the days ahead. And it's difficult for the Ukrainian side to defend itself because it's outgunned by mainly Russian artillery.
That many people listening to you say that may appear surprised, because they'll say that the international community has been helping Ukraine.
Yes, they have, but it takes time to deliver heavy weapon systems, and it's also delayed, these deliveries. Well, the US is providing quite quickly good systems, but it's not in the number that the Russians have when it comes to artillery. And now the fight is in a more open space. There are city fighting that we saw in the initial phase of the war, but now the war has another dimension, and that's the dimension in which armored vehicles, tanks, and especially artillery is vital.
Looking at this from the outside in, including your country, Norway, will probably be trying to make contingency arrangements against falling into the Ukrainian situation. Already, Sweden and Finland are beginning to pursue NATO membership in spite of the warning from Russia that it may face a similar outcome or a similar treatment if they do. But in the case of Norway, Norway hasn't quite done that yet. Is there a divergence in terms of the strategic, perhaps, do you think, looking at the situation, is there a divergence in terms of strategy between Norway and Finland and Sweden and other such Nordic countries?
NATO membership is important for Sweden and Finland in order to boost their the defense of their countries, and they're quite capable countries, both of them, when it comes to defense. But on the nuclear side, they don't have a deterrence against Russia, and with NATO they will gain that. Norway's position, we've been part of NATO for a long time. We have a dual relationship with Russia. We have cooperation in the north. Traditionally, it was good also during the Cold War, where we cooperated on, for example, fishery issues with the Soviet Union. But today, with this new conflict in Ukraine, this collaboration is continuing, but it's damaged. Well, Norway sees the inclusion of Sweden and Finland as an advantage. It will strengthen NATO in the north, and it will instigate increased defense cooperation between the Nordic countries.
However, there's, shall we say, what people call the fly in the ointment here. And in the case of NATO, that is Turkey. Turkey says it is opposed to the membership of both Sweden and Finland because it is those two countries, in its view, are harboring organizations and people that are against the government in Turkey. Because to join NATO requires the unanimity of all its current members. Do you think this could stop, slow the accession process, which most people thought would be quite quick?
Yeah, you're right. We thought it would be quite quick, and the Turkish last-minute objection is delaying the process at least. And I don't think it will cancel the process. It will delay it somewhat, but it's my contacts say that it will still go ahead and be fairly quick. But you never know with Turkey. There could be a serious obstacle, and it depends on the bilateral negotiation that's going on between especially Sweden and Turkey, but also of course the US and how the US can give some benefits to Turkey, be it fighter jets, F-16 or another prize, making Ankara more content and happy with the inclusion of the two countries.
Let me ask you to look at your crystal ball, if you like, and look at a broader situation here, which quite a number of people have pointed at. The Ukraine war is about Russia feeling insecure and talking about security buffers against the West. More broadly speaking, many had thought we were now in a unipolar world, but this crisis, this war situation in Ukraine tends to give the impression that things are a bit more nuanced and that the world seems to be returning to the situation where you had East and West. East represented by Russia and China, West represented by the United States, Britain, and France, at least as far as the UN Security Council goes. And then everybody else lines up behind those countries. Is that a fair assessment of what is really going on, and what impact could that have on the security situation globally going forward?
Yes, we have, well, with some comments on that. It's no longer a unipolar world. Yes, that's true. And China is the other major superpower emerging, and we're going into a sort of a bipolar world. You have two great powers. And then you have Russia as well, and Russia doesn't really have the economy to be a sort of a global player that China and the US are capable of. So, but Russia is a nuclear power that's very serious, and they have a great capacity in that regard, and that makes them a potential spoiler at least. But on this division, I think the interdependency between the two states, the US and China, is so great that we don't see this development yet. Yes, is a serious rhetoric, and yes, there are the rhetoric democratic versus authoritarian regimes, and we see a development. I see a development in that regard, but we're not there that you can say that the world is divided, and I hope that we don't get to that point. But currently, we have this war in Ukraine, and yes, that's a war against authoritarian state led by President Putin, and the interdependency in Europe on the energy issues, especially regarding gas, but also oil. It's now an issue that the Western Europe wants to get away with, or this to cancel, because you don't want to be dependent on an authoritarian state, because they can do things that you don't want them to do, and that's something that can hurt European policies and economy. So things are changing in that direction, but China is still integrated very heavily in global affairs.
Indeed. Tom Rosette, Associate Professor, Intelligence Studies, Head of Ukraine Program at the Norwegian Defense College in Oslo. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.